And the applicants indicated that in the application as well.
Excellent. Any questions from anybody? Want to comment on this one?
Yeah, just a question on that separate parade application. What is that?
From what it was in there,
Yeah. Is there a separate application for that?
I'd have to look at it.
Okay. Because we just want to make sure that whoever this applicant is, that they take care of that.
See a medallion hunt starting a few days prior to the parade. 12 p.m. kids costume contest at the VFW and a 1 p.m. parade on the application.
Yeah, is there a separate application for that?
I'll double check.
Okay, I don't think we have one.
It says please see route map. And we have a route map.
Let's just make sure we inform that applicant of any application they may need.
Okay. Yep, we shall.
Can we put him on our committee? I never noticed that.
Anybody got a motion?
I'll move to approve the application.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the application. Is that under the conditions as described in the event application? I assume? Yes? Yes. All right. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item. Next item is a resolution removing parking on Oak Street. This is something we visited before with our safe routes to school, but this is a little different take on it. Mr. Dean, if you want to go ahead and explain that one.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So again, the request is related to that Safe Routes project. So due to the median in the project, there's going to be a tapered area at the west and east ends that will need to shift traffic in and out of that segment of street. Due to the width that we have, the parking will have to be removed from the north side of Oak, essentially in the short areas between the intersections of 15th to 150 feet west, roughly, and then 16th Street to 150 feet to the east. On the east end, this is going to have little impact as the school's parking lot is adjacent to the area. On the west end, there are two residences that would be affected, 1421 and 1423. 1423 will still retain their on-street parking access on 15th Street. 1421 parking will be limited to the access using the alley behind their property. As the council wished to keep parking available on the south side of Oak Street last fall, there really aren't a lot of other options to shift the infrastructure to allow parking to stay in these areas.
Okay. How wide or how long is one block? You said it's 150 feet of no parking. Is it a 300-foot block?
Let me double check here how much this one specifically, because it'll be in the...
The mayor thinks it's 370. But it's roughly half or less.
Homes, and there's usually 5.
Yeah,
Yes,
so it's
it'll be roughly about 370 on this one too.
Okay. Wow. Knows his stuff. Okay, so does anybody have any issues with this one?
What's the how do you determine it has to be 150? And did I miss that? Was there an explanation or I missed?
So the 150 is related to the tapering length, on how far that length, I guess, encroaches on the existing on-street parking. After the 150 feet, it's narrow enough to the point where it doesn't encroach on the existing on-street parking anymore. And then it tapers out. So it's roughly a 10-to-1 taper from the, or I think it's a 21 taper from the end of the median to where the width is 0.
Have those two property owners been notified of this?
No.
Essentially, from what I can understand, it's one house that has essentially a garage and parking on the side street, but the other one is one that will lose parking in front of their own house.
Correct.
Is that home, that one that will lose the parking on Oak Street, a owner occupied home? Do you know?
I do not know offhand. Without checking into it, I'd have to look into it. But no, we haven't checked this in with them. Like I mentioned, there's not a lot of other options here to avoid it, whether or not that they're in support of or against losing their parking on street. To make this project work with the median, this is something that we would have to do.
Is there any way of adjusting the width of the median on that portion of that end of the median area where it's I don't think there is, I'm guessing, right?
Most likely not. So MnDOT also has to run this through their ADA office to get approval since it's a state aid project, and most likely anything narrower than that in the areas where the crossings are would not get their approval.
So if this gets turned down, Jesse, would you essentially be saying scrap this project, or would you be looking for more options?
I could do some research with it, but like I said, I don't foresee any options that we have to make any adjustments here. Would almost have to remove the median, which would pretty much scrap the project, yes.
Okay. I personally have no real big issue with this, but I know there was issues with it on the council when it came through last time. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is again, but if you guys have a motion or if you want to discuss more, did you have anything you want to say?
Sean, could you pull that actual topographic photo you had up? There we go. Yep. So it looks like half of to that home to the west there. It appears that is that the wrong spot?
So you got to go to the north side of the street and then over to the west. Yeah,
right,
that's
right.
That's where we're talking.
So it appears that there's already half of that first home already has no parking. So we already are dealing with that a little bit. So that does soften the blow slightly.
Correct. And as far as I understand, that property generally does park on the 15th Street side.
Pull that up. So we're a little further north, Sean, just to see. So there's a garage available for parking. There is a parking spot. Actually, there's a stall there too for that property. So there is some parking available still for that property, as well as further to the west. So solvable problem.
I'll reluctantly move to approve this.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, item number 3 is a grant application for the Laura Jane Musser Environmental Initiative Grant for J.C.'s Park Trail. This is obviously a park item, but it would be a grant that essentially we have to approve the park board to apply for this grant, correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay, go ahead,
So
Mr.
it's a
Dean.
competitive, relatively small grant that the park board did request that staff apply for. This is to construct the walking, skiing, and snowshoeing trail that encompasses much of J.C.'s Park that's indicated in the master plan. The grant itself is intended to accomplish 2 goals. One's to get people out in public places like parks, and then the second one is to enhance the surrounding ecological system. As the trail alone only accomplishes the first part of those goals, we're also recommending including several pollinator plots along the trail in certain areas to kind of provide some bee and other pollinator habitat that we don't have present in our parks currently. So right now we're looking to apply for roughly $30,000, but we'll refine that amount as we kind of refine the estimate once we're going through that grant application process.
Remind me again, is this a 50-50 match or a non-matching grant?
I believe it is a non-matching grant.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Jesse, please tell me what a pollinator plant is and the maintenance on those, if you could.
So they're more natives, a little bit more of a kind of blooming flower. I think James has got a lot more experience with pollinator plots.
Yeah, so typically a pollinator plant does have to be native. Cultivars that are kind of made for their flowers typically wouldn't be a good pollinator plant. So typically it's natives that are seeded. Could be done by plug as well. There is some maintenance within kind of the first 3 years. That's kind of your main maintenance for creating a pollinator garden. You have to make sure that there's that it isn't being taken over by certain weeds, especially thistles and such. But after 3 years, that's typically where then the maintenance would be certainly less. Typically after 3 years, after a good established garden, you just have to essentially cut it or mow it back.
Could you tell me a dimension of a pollinator pot? Or the shape or size or whatever? How much area? Whatever.
So we would be doing smaller maybe 5-foot wide plot. We haven't really determined exactly what the size would be. I think we would size it appropriately along the trail in areas that don't impact operations of the rest of the park. We would try and keep it close to the trail.
They're a permanent fixture?
Correct.
How much they cost?
That would be something that we would work on estimating with the landscape companies.
I always dread putting more stuff like that out because it just takes more staff time to tend to and all that. But I don't know. Is that something you guys talked about and considered when you 15 of these?
We probably won't go that many. It would probably be just a few of them in pretty localized areas. I think the benefit here is that we are going to get that trail constructed for the limited amount of maintenance that, well, at least after the initial maintenance, the limited amount of maintenance that we'd have to put into it is the benefit.
And this was a crushed gravel.
That's what we're going to propose. Correct.
Okay.
I will move to authorize staff to apply for the Laura Jane Musser Environmental Initiative Fund grant for the J.C.'s Park Multi-Use Trail.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. On to number 4. This is a grant application, again, for another park board issue here. This is for the Minnesota DNR Outdoor Recreation Grant for Lum Park Beach Restroom Building. Mr. Dean, if you want to go ahead and talk about this one.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So the park board requested that staff apply this one. This grant would accommodate the ARPA projects that have been provided already. So the city's allocated $300,000 of ARPA funds to Lum Park, $150 for the beach expansion and $150 for the campground expansion. So the DNR outdoor rec grant is a 50-50 match. So staff is recommending considering the two separate projects together as one, just for the purposes of creating a $300,000 project to apply for an additional $300,000 in DNR funds. So that would total the whole project to about $600,000. The funds that we would receive from the DNR grant would be intended to rebuild the beach restroom building that is currently unusable due to some utility and foundation issues that we have out there. It would be recommended that we would rebuild the facility further away from the lake shore, and that would be to better accommodate the additional beach expansion to the south. The current building is considerably close to the shoreline, and with the grades that it's at, make it really difficult to achieve ADA accessibility as well. So we did get clarification from the DNR that rebuilding that facility would be an eligible expense for the grant. So we did get clarification on that. So right now we're just requesting approval to apply for the DNR grant, which would then require construction in late 2023 or into 2024.
Okay. I just have some concern on this one. We talked about this a little last week, Jesse, but so what we would essentially be doing is expanding this beach and moving that building that we see on the screen right now to the south. And if you look a little further south, not much further, we have another bathroom. Yeah, over to the east, yeah, I believe.
How far would the two be away from each other once, if this a new facility, right?
We don't have the exact location of what the new facility would be located at, but we would work with the designer to figure out how to best site that, as well as the park board to kind of scope that
Do you
project.
know the distance between the two existing now?
Sean's trying to measure it right now.
Tape measure out.
He's got a little tool on there. 250. Okay.
That's yards.
Feet.
Feet. Oh.
So in a park this size, I just don't know what the intention of the park board is because I wasn't there, but we do have a park board member here. So I guess allowing for this grant, my only fear is that now we're pigeonholed into having to build this building, whether the park board has decided to or not yet. Or do we just add on showers, bathrooms, make something bigger from the existing bathrooms, or renovate somehow? Would you want to speak on that, Mr. Yeager?
Thank you, Mr. O'Day. Yeah, I can just shed a little bit of light on this. When I saw this in the packet, I was just a little bit concerned also. But before I say anything else, I'd like to thank Jesse for his eagerness and trying to move forward with a project, especially where there may be potentially dollars coming in to help us with some future goals. But my concern with this is really that I think at the discussion that the park board had regarding the building down at the beach, the discussion was more of a pavilion style building, new construction, moved back, than it really was bathrooms or a showering facility. The idea, at least when we talked about it, was potentially bathrooms, but it was more of the free air concept, a shelter, shaded type shelter. I also share some concerns with this of just what the flexibility might be if we were to get those dollars. How flexible are they with the building, what the shape is, that type of thing. And I also have some concerns as to whether or not 300 grand would actually even get it done. So my concern is being pigeonholed into a grant that locks us into a certain path that I'm not sure the park board has full consensus on.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
what's the deadline on applying for this grant, Mr. Dean?
I believe it's end of March.
Other opportunities next year for a similar grant?
There would be, however, we wouldn't be able to couple it with the ARPA projects. Those will have to be expended prior to.
Mr. Yeager, would you and the park board, and maybe this is a question for both of you, if we approve or if we authorize the application for this grant, is it as written today, or can we go back to the park board and make sure that we leave enough detail undetailed so we still have room to work with what we're going to end up with in the long run here?
Absolutely. This is actually on the park board's agenda for their next meeting next week, so we can clarify the exact scope of what the park board would like to see in it.
Can we talk about it Monday? I would think.
Yeah, we can do a quick update if that's the case.
We do have that meeting Monday, yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just
Yeah.
one thing about if we were to talk about this on Monday, I'd like to have the park board enough time to just review the documentation and really kind of get their thoughts together of what they'd really like to see with this pavilion, as the discussions that we had about it were fairly macro view at the last meeting. So just so long as they had some time to know that it was coming and to think about it. So.
Right. Yeah, so, yeah, main concern coming from me as just one member of the council would be increasing number of buildings is just increasing maintenance, and I think you guys have a good hold on that, so.
Mr. Chair, would
Yeah.
you be willing to accept a motion to just hold this over to we're not tabling it, just holding it over? Just not do anything with it at this point?
We could, and then potentially we could go back and put this on at the first meeting in March, because we'd still have time.
My concern is the time for staff to be able to prepare the application. We can try and squeeze it in, but this allows us a little bit more time. But we can put it on the first council agenda if that's what the council wishes.
By my math, I think we have at least 4 park board meetings before the end of March, so.
Okay, so time to talk about it, that's for sure. Okay. I'm comfortable tabling it if we can still get it.
We don't need to table it.
We don't need to table it, but we can hold off and just, maybe just sending direction to either staff and or park board members to just review it, make sure it leaves enough openness to do what we need to do to get the best result.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd look forward to the conversation, because it really, the conversation could also, the argument could be made, well, should we just use the money to upgrade our existing shower and bathroom building? So maybe I think this just needs to go a little further and just be talked about a little more before we pull the trigger on exactly what it is. And again, I just don't know the flexibility of that money if you were to get the grant, how much flexibility there is, but.
Well, it doubles the amount of money for the project. So
Correct.
That part makes sense, but
Yes.
if you have a bathroom next to a bathroom, people are gonna start asking why we did that, so.
Yes. I'd be at the top of the list.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the next item then. Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Number 5 is approving a proposal from Bolton and Mink for engineering services for the Buffalo Hills Gully remediation project. Mr. Dean, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So the staff reached out to Bolton and Mink to provide a proposal for construction engineering services on the Buffalo Hills Gully remediation project. As a reminder, the city was awarded a $975,000 grant in clean water funds for the project, which comes up to about 80% of what the estimated cost was. The local funds are roughly $244,000, which comes out to a 20% match. We are proposing to be funding using the Stormwater Utility Enterprise Fund. Due to the issues with the long-eared bat that are now endangered, we're unable to remove any trees this year, and such as this project will likely not begin until next winter for the 2023-2024 season, thus putting construction into the 2024 season. Bolton and Mink has provided a proposal of just over $75,000, which is representing a roughly 8-week construction project that staff feels is an appropriate assumption. So right now we're requesting approval of the proposal by Bolton and Mink for the construction engineering on the project.
Typically, and I don't know if I've asked you anything about this, but typically we have more than one proposal on a project like this. Did we receive any other proposals?
We did not. I didn't reach out to any other ones. I directly solicited with Bolton and Mink on this one. I'm more than willing to go out and get other quotes from other ones. I would anticipate that they'd be somewhat similar if they're anticipating the 8-week construction project as well.
Okay. You guys feel?
I feel like we need to ask for, somebody else to weigh in, even if it ends up being similar.
This is just professional services, so you don't have to ask for competitive bids?
That is correct, yep.
I don't never like those.
Competitive is always better for us, but
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be on this one, so. It's a project that isn't going to happen this summer, more than likely happen in following summer.
Right, there's zero chance of this happening this summer, from what I understand, because of the bats.
Correct. We're
So,
not
We're really not in any rush.
correct.
Well, maybe we reach out and get a couple
Just a couple more.
bids to see if we're in even the right spot. I think we probably are, but we wouldn't know unless we did.
But, one of the things like that, though, is that there's already a number sitting there. It's not fair for anybody else to come in and say, I can do that for less. It's the option, that went out the window as soon as we
Put it on the agenda.
up Bolton and Mink's price, yeah. So, I can beat Bolton and Mink, sure. Well, maybe not. Maybe they can't, but you see what I mean. I mean, it's,
Is this coming out of the grant?
That would probably come out of our local match. The grant is funding most of the construction. The local match can be part of the engineering. So part of that 244 was intended to be engineering services in there.
Okay.
I don't, honestly, I don't know enough about this project. It's been talked about for a while now, correct? And I guess I did hear our mayor sounding off on this, and he does make a valid point, I do believe, and I don't know how they've proven that it's a city. Has it ever been established with certainty how the city is responsible for this?
So we have issues with sediment that's getting into the river through kind of the washout of the soils in this area. Obviously, there's a few homes that are endangered here. A lot of this results from some of the development south of Buffalo Hills Lane. There's no stormwater controls that are there, so when it does rain on the impervious areas through there, it does come at a pretty high clip that does accelerate some of the erosion that we're seeing north of Buffalo Hills Lane. So the city specifically is not responsible for that, but some of the development that was allowed on the south side is kind of exacerbating the issue. And as mentioned, we do have some responsibilities with our MS4 permit coming up in the next permit cycle that will require us to reduce some of the suspended solids into the river. This project will help us achieve some of those goals.
So we're probably somewhere between 0 and 20% responsible as a city for the expansion of Brainerd Gorge. But if we want to speed up the process of really knowing what we're getting into, I think now that this is out there, maybe we go forward with this proposal. forward with it. We're actually still beating the budget that we thought it was going to be. So, but that's up to you guys. So whatever you want to do to make a motion or not make a motion, it's up to you two.
Given that there's no rush on this, I think it's worth calling around a little bit more. Do you want a motion on that, or?
Nope, that's
Okay.
fine.
I don't think we need a motion
think
on
so
that if
either,
that's the way we want to go.
But if you wanted one, I would make one
okay.
for you.
Mr. Mayor?
Just because I probably will speak against this project again, just to clarify my stance on it, we have photos back in 1939 that are aerial photos of this gorge that is a natural impression in the earth that was caused by natural causes before any development was done in that area, before any roads were done in that area. I have a really hard time as a city taking responsibility for water pathways, whether that's the Mississippi River, whether that's lakes in our area. I have a really hard time with us declaring that we have ownership of it. I know our chair here has land on Little Buffalo Creek, and I know that that creek is water, and it will go where it wants, and there's a potential for that to dig towards your home. I just don't know if I'm comfortable with us setting the precedent of claiming ownership over waterways that have existed due to natural reasons.
Point taken. Okay,
We're moving on, I assume?
we are moving on unless you have a motion, so. And it doesn't sound like we have a motion, so we'll move on to number 6. And that is the street lighting policy details update. Mr.
Yes,
Ian,
sir.
go ahead.
Mr. Chair, in your packet, we've provided an update on the new fixture that was more economical but similar in shape to the Epic that was discussed previously. So this new fixture is the Corona fixture. Apologies that the detail sheets that we have were not in the packet, but the main difference between the two is the Corona is just slightly less ornate and a little bit less detail than the Epic fixture. And as mentioned in the memo, the Corona has a little less light direction control than the Epic does. With consideration for the more economical but similar Corona fixture, we did prepare the cost analysis using this Corona fixture. In the memo, it was indicated that the Corona fixture would be nearly $600 cheaper than the Epic. However, we did receive an update from the supplier that the manufacturer of the Epic fixtures did take another look at the pricing, and they were able to lower the pricing of the Epic fixture to $2,008, including the fixture, mast arm, and hardware. With the Corona priced at $1,985 per fixture, the difference now between the two is only approximately $23. As this information just came today, the pricing in the memo was still based on the pricing of the Corona fixture. So we've put together some different options with maps for several of the different corridors, including a total cost of the upgrade. As a reminder, MnDOT's also going to be sharing in the cost of the Washington Street lighting at roughly $500,000. The cost for that project does not include new wire and conduit, which will be an additional expense as part of that project. So at this time, staff is requesting council recommend options for each of the commercial corridors. Any decision on whether to continue with the previous agreed upon Epic fixture or to utilize the small cost savings to go with the Corona fixture.
Yeah.
I would go with the Epic now that they're more in line with the Corona, being that they have that light adjustment and these Coronas don't. And then I also am not a big fan of these banner, so I think where that would be, I think primarily needed is downtown, if I'm not mistaken. And the outlets again, I'm not in favor of those. We're talking about streetlights. We're talking about aesthetics. I don't know, other than the light direction, and I just have a hard time asking people to pay for these when, you know, it's just so, it looks nice. It looks nice. You know, I get it. It looks nice. Everything's a uniform. Okay. It's a street light. It provides light. You know, I know I'm talking from a guy in the dark, but it seems to me like a lot of money, okay? For a lot of money to provide light. If you want to change the lights, I don't see spending, I go with the one that came down in price, Epic. I can go with that. I can go with Being that it's more reasonable to this Corona, we didn't even know what Corona was until he came back with those. So that's where I'm at. I don't know how that plays out in the recommendation. So that's where I'm at.
I think it sounds like you are leaning towards option D, which would be no banners, no outlets.
I mean, again, not entirely. There are some areas in the city where I would be okay with that. I think it's pretty much downtown. I mean, how often, if you go, how many hours in a year, how many hours of these, any given year do we have banners? And usually, do we use it all?
Well, some years we have holiday banners up all year round.
That's what and where
But I think to your point, these banners become more of an issue. Who's going to put them up? Who's going to take them down? There's a cost to the banners every time you want to change them, put new ones up. And as for the outlets, if you don't have somewhere for banners to go and or these wreaths, you don't really need the outlet either. What we need is a light pole that's more modern and is what we want to represent what we are putting in our streets projects. So I think if we just stick to the option D for all of the above, I'd be happy with it. And obviously, I think now that they've lowered their price, I agree. The Epic fixture is the choice.
But when you say option D, are you talking no banners on any of these? Is downtown going to benefit to have banners? If that's something that we want to do, I'm okay with that. Are we talking about
The downtown district won't be replaced with these style lights. They already have banner
Okay, good
fixtures
enough.
on them.
That's
so
all I need. Okay.
yeah, for
Good enough.
the sidewalks downtown, they're already there.
Okay. That's where I'm at. So,
Okay.
Tiffany,
I really have no strong opinions about banners or outlets.
Okay.
I would move we go with option D and the Epic lights.
Okay.
I'll second that.
So you want to make a motion to choose Epic Lights for commercial corridors along with option D for all of the streets projects listed?
I am, yes.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. All right. And then next item, number 7, is downtown special services landscaping budget. And I don't know if this is Mr. Dean or,
Are we rushed on time
ahead.
here at all?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So real quick, in the memo, staff put together a list of recommendations for landscaping downtown for the 2023 season. With those recommendations, we prepared a recommended budget of $18,000 to utilize city staff for planting, maintaining, mulching, watering of landscaping downtown. That recommendation does include soliciting bids from landscaping companies to actually grow and install the hanging plants. The other potential option would be to contract all of the maintenance to a private landscaping company, which we're estimating to be north of $30,000. All of the costs in the landscaping are to be assessed to the adjacent properties, including the city's parking lots. And if you have any other questions, I'll be able to help.
just a general question, what's different with this than last year for everybody in the room?
This version is very similar to what we would be doing as last year. The difference is the budget amount based on what we're proposing with the increased costs and trying to get some more planting of the urns and stuff. I think we increased from 15 to 17 on the urns, if I remember right, for this year.
Okay. Questions, guys? Okay, got a motion?
I would move we'd take the staff's recommendation to budget for 18,000 for 23.
Second.
20, it was 23, yeah.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Or all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Is Jesse here? I mean, is Sean around? Anybody?
John, yeah, he's here.
Sean, can you help me?
Looking for a,
I got something to come up here. I wonder if you'd look
oh,
at.
sure. We just have one item left. Do you want me to,
I'm
do you
sorry.
want me to pause here?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Last item is just active code enforcement cases. This one's for Mr. Kramvik. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff is bringing one case before SPW. This is addressed as 1306 Oak Street, nuisance violation for garbage in the backyard. Since this is a repeat offender for garbage, they were issued a $300 citation and then brought to SPW at the next meeting. Staff's recommendation is obtaining a warrant from the city attorney and abating the garbage at 1306 Oak Street as soon as possible.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes, and we can adjourn to the council meeting. Ready, breaks.